Greetings, as I, Tantus Naraman, your Lord and Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. And of course, welcome to you regardless of where you're joining me, whether over on Twitch, if you're live with me, or later on YouTube. For those of you on YouTube, I'm going to give my little spiel of, hey, appeal to the great and dark algorithm, like, subscribe, ring the bell, comment on it, all that great stuff. Today, we're going to be talking about Vanara. So the question is, to any of you out there, have you played or played with a Vanara? That's my question. So, yes, we're going to be diving deep in another ancestry, and this one's a very interesting one from the Casmeronian continent, from Casmeron, in that region, and, yeah. So, why don't we get started on it rather than just me kind of blabbing on about some generalized nonsense, and I've already given my spiel and shout-out. And we'll start, of course, with, well, books. I do like starting with them. And there are a number of books you can look up. Bestiary 3 is when the Vanara were introduced. They were elaborated in Inner Sea Races book from first edition, and we get into Heroes of Golarion, and then Impossible Lands for second edition. So yes, we do have some second edition information for the Vanara, so it's not just first edition, but yeah. So there's a Vanara, one from Casmer. So who are they? Well, they're an ancestry of intelligent simian humans. So they are, in a way, similar to humans and a lot of more humanoids and kind of ape-like things, but they are more monkey, simian. They traditionally dwelled in the jungles and forests of Casmer. Doesn't mean that's the only place they are, but that's kind of one of their main origins. And they do have their own language called Vanara. Okay, so that's some good basics about them. You kind of understand now. So what do they look like? Well, that's a good question, too. They're normally slightly shorter than the average human. They're covered in a thin coat of fur that varies in colors. Some can be ivory to light browns, chestnuts, even gold color. And despite being covered in fur, they still grow lengthy hair on their head. So they do have almost like hair on the top of their head that's separate from their fur. It's like a mane or something. And all Vanaras take considerable pride in wearing elaborate hairstyles to any social function. The Vanara's fur and hair match colors, save for a few with pale hair known as white caps. So traditionally they're the same color, though you can have some, as you can see for this individual, his hair is white, and you can see from his tail, his fur is gold. So he is a white cap. All Vanaras have a prehensile tail, and their feet are almost as dexterous and capable of fine manipulation as their hands. So they are, in that way, very dexterous and very wise, to say. Now, they do physically reach maturity at age 13 and typically live to be about 60 years old. So they get to be mature and adults a little earlier than like a human would be, but they don't live as long either. Now, where do they come from? Well, Vanaras trace their lineage to the monkey god Ragdaya, who created them as an agent of mischiefs or scouts to keep wealth of mortals and immortals alike, particular fields. We're not going to go into depth about Ragdaya, but the relationship with Ragdaya is very important. We'll get into that a little bit more in a second. But Royal of Rudrani considers the appearance of Vanara a good omen or divine omen, while their exploits create natural enemies out of a number of beings, such as Nagas and Rakshasa Marajas. Talk about that too. That's going to be important. So, let's talk about how they fit society. And we're going to have to talk about that first as individuals when working together in a group of them. Then we're going to talk about their society as a whole, because there's not a lot on that, but there is a little bit on them as part of their society that we can talk about. So, Vanaras in general are varied. They do seek balance and comfort in their lives. Many of them are devout without being fanatical. Many of them are tricksters without being malicious, daring without being foolish, curious without being obsessive. It's the thing that they have these lot of inner workings of the way they want to do things, but they try to keep it in a relative wise moderation. They're aware of their connection with Ragdaya. Many Vanarans want to live beyond the grace of their god and the weight of their history, though. and pursue their own passive enlightenment. You have to remember, I've talked about it a little bit with Kazmaron and Vudra, that kind of region. There is a lot of idea of enlightenment in that region. So, especially the Vanaras that live in Vudra are most commonly connected with this deep idea. Though it is something that does exist in many Vanaran culture and society. They want to pursue virtue, self-knowledge, and fulfillment when their souls are reborn in the next world. So, for this reason, though they were created by Radaya, they feel themselves apart from that and can find the connection almost uncomfortable at times, because Radaya is an eternal trickster, with supreme likenessness, yet unchanging from his immortal premise. So the idea is he's a trickster, he's a reckless trickster, but because he's immortal, he doesn't change. And see, Vanaras cherish that there's this misfits, this mischievous, this feats of folly, and recognize it. And they do celebrate that on religious holidays. But he can't reincarnate in another form. He can't be changed. But a Vanara can. Because Vanaras aren't immutable like their creator kind of is. So it does reflect on their kind of impermanent nature, and, consider that's why they kind of go for the quest for enlightenment. They want to evolve beyond where they were created from. Because Agda has this mischief and daring without consequence. Vanara know that recklessness and harmful tricks will impede not only another, but their own personal path towards enlightenment. So the drive to mischief and spontaneity instilled within them is something that they try to manage. Because they do have this level of mischief in them, this level of spontaneity, that they have to kind of still they want to do it, but they don't want to let it completely overcome them. It's a source of conflict for them when they try to seek the balance in their natures. And there are legends of heroic Vanaras from the past that they live up to. We can tell one of the most big stories, basically. So, the most notable story of legendary Vanaras, which is something, this is a societal thing, is known to most to be the far-flung ones, from the far-flung ashram to the snow-capped border mountains of Vudra, with their trickery against Ravana, the greatest of all Rakshasa immortals. So, what did they do? And these are the heroic, legendary Vanaras who passed on their god. Ravana was a tyrant, who forced many noble souls, Vanara and human alike, to construct a resplendent bridge of azure stones that would cross the plains from Vudra to Rakshasa's realm. Ravana demanded that each stone be carved to display the mewing visage of the mortal who cut it and shaped it. Through mischief and artifice, Vanara altered the carving so, when assembled, they would suddenly display components of a prayer to all of the Vudrani pantheon. So when the bridge was finished, and Ravana marched across with an army of fiends in a prolific parade, the shuddering stones beneath his footsteps mimics the movements of a communal prayer. Deities drawn to display toppled the immortal Ajram, and he still blames the mystic Vanaras for this humiliation. So, one of the things from the stories, Vanara sees their legacy to bring shame to the wicked and powerful by means of clever tricks and communal efforts. And I will tell you, their heritages are all technically legacy contents from the Impossible Lands. They should be relatively caught up. Relatively. But again, because Impossible Lands, though second edition is prior core, could be some changes. Just could be a little bit. I'll talk about them and their Golarion in a second there. Now, if you do look to their general societies together, because they are jungle and forest-dwelling people, they prefer treetops and have treetop villages, with individual buildings connected with ropes and ladders. And normally, somebody that is like a holy person, whether a cleric, monk, or oracle, is usually the leader of this community. Traditionally, not always, but traditionally, they have someone of a holy stature leader. Alright, let's talk about on Golarion, and then we'll mention their heritages, just a little bit, to give you an idea. And again, stuff from the Impossible Lands book, it's technically legacy content because it's pre-core, but probably mostly correct. On Golarion, though, Vanaras are basically a common sight with the Impossible Kingdoms of Vudra, and are common, even incorporated into the country's caste system. Many of the Vanaras have flocked to the fortresses of cities such as Dalanagar on the Open Bridge region, desperate to reclaim their homelands. Their former island homes become landlocked in 4606 when the Avari Ocean receded, exposing a new land bridge that was tragically infested with hordes of raging aberrations. So yes, basically the seas receded, and I cough around the Eridan time, and things went bad for some of their homelands. So there's some that are trying to reclaim it. Vanaras are also numerous to the Crying Jungles region of Vudra. It's one of the densest, most verdant jungles in the entire Casmeron. They are the second largest demographic in Radfuri, the city of Archons. Beyond Vudra, the only cities where they're common is Niswan and Jalarme. They also join Vudran settlements on coasts or in dense woodlands. So any place that Vudrans have settled, they will join too. On TNZ, they can be found living in the depths of the Valshami jungle in the continent's southern reaches. They're different than their Vudran cousins because they live in a very lethal jungle, and many of the tribes have resorted to very vicious savagery in that region. On Garund, Vanaras have interest in the arcane discipline congregate in Quantium and Nex. And a significant number, but small number still, live and travel through Absalom. So you can find them outside Vudra and Casmeron, but it's a lot rarer. They are more uncommon and more common, I should say, in those regions. Now, as for their heritages, there's the Bandage Beef Vanara. They're the most common kind, most general type. The Lakagayan Vanara, who have been a lot more born in Radaga's image, because they're red-faced, they have sharp teeth, and eat meat. And they find service in his enemy. Radagdanyan Vanra, they're keepers of traditions and tales, and trace their lineage directly to the whims of Ragdaya. And the Wajaghan Vanaras, I'm talking butchering these a lot, where the ancestors fought into the labor of the Rakshasa mortal Ravna. They're no longer bound, but they have scars that mark their bloodline. There you go. And yes, all of them do venerate Ragdaya, so keep that in mind. Though there are others that could worship others, and some that will even worship the evil Lakgaya, the enemy of Ragdaya, Simian Hunter. But yes. But there is Vanara. An interesting ancestry because they are very much so one that is in a lot of ways familiar and alien. Because they are much more animalistic and simian. It's kind of like that thing of, again, because they're more monkey still. But think about, like, the alien, the strange uncanniness of something like the Planet of the Apes ones. Especially the older versions of that. Where we kind of think about that, where it's the more humanoid beings. And yes, the Vanara kind of fit in that a little bit there. But they are interesting people because they are directly created from basically maybe a universal prank from their prankster creator. Who knows? There's an idea of mischief and messing around with the stuff of other more higher beings, especially fiends, that they were created for. So there might be a lot of reasons why they were really created, but they are evolving beyond that, and that is something important to them. Because they recognize their creator and where they came from, but they're also like, yeah, we change and grow. You don't. So it's important to them to change, to grow, to have that in them. It's part of their nature. And yeah, maybe you don't find them as much outside of Tasmaran, but you can. Plenty of them can travel and go places, and there are some in many places in the world, as we talked about in Golarion. They have traveled. They've gone to places. They've explored, discovered. They're an interesting group that just is a little bit more of the flavor of all of Golarion, and definitely adds to it. And, you know, anyone play a mild prank on it, but they'll never take it too far. It's that thing that they understand moderation. It's a very important part. So we'll leave that there, and I hope you all enjoyed. Remember to check out all my other stuff, whether it's live on Twitch or YouTube. All the tabletop stuff is originally recorded on Twitch. It goes up on YouTube. The schedule for that is Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. You can catch me live early to mid-afternoon. The tabletop stuff, Pathfinder stuff is on Thursdays normally. Again, all that goes up on YouTube. A live play on Wednesdays at 9, currently Crimson Queen. As of recording this, check that out. Or any of my other live plays. I'm discussing tabletop on Saturdays. We talk loosely and deeper discussion topics in tabletop, I should say. And social media stuff linked below. That's all my shout-outs. Okay, everybody. I'm going to get going. Thank you for joining me. Give that little bit of shout-out to myself and stuff like that. Join me for more stuff. And I hope you enjoyed learning about the Vanara and want to look into more interesting ancestries in Golarion. Because, yeah, we got the common ones, but there's a lot of really interesting, unusual, rare, uncommon ancestries out there that would be really fun to play and dive into learning about. But until the next time, I bid all of you a deep and wonderful farewell.